Hello, everybody, and welcome to Programming in Python. This is our first day of class in fall semester of 2021. And we're going to begin by going and looking at our syllabus for the course, which is what is required of me by the school here. And if you are in the course shell, you will notice in the left sidebar here that there's an entry that says Syllabus, Calendar, and Instructor Information. Right, and I want you to click on that. And there's a PDF version of the syllabus available here right at the top of this, this folder, which you can go ahead and open. If you want to download a copy for your records, you can do that. You can even print it if you want to. But I will be putting it up on screen. And if there's any changes made to the syllabus, they will be republished back to this spot. So what sometimes happens is, I spot little mistakes, like a typo or something like that, and I go back and fix things. And given the hurried nature of me preparing it for class today, it's very high likelihood that there's mistakes. And if you guys spot one, no shame in pointing it out to me because I'm happy to fix it. I'm human and make mistakes too. So please help me out if you see any problems with it. All right, so here comes the syllabus up on screen. And, the point of a syllabus in general is it really kind of forms a contractual agreement between the school and you as a student. You paid money to come to take this course to learn certain skills, and I'm dictating here what it takes to earn the grade and what things you have to do in order to accomplish that, including how I score things, my grading system, and a bunch of those types of details. So let's just start with the basics. The course is called Programming in Python. This is a first semester course in both the data analytics program and the web software developer technical diploma and two-year associate's degree. And it is required in both of those programs, and I would say critical language in both programs, especially data analytics. Right away, I'm seeing my first typo. You guys spotting it? Yeah, there we go. Batting 1,000, folks. And this particular error I will fix, but I'll do it in the aftermath. So it's fall 2021, not fall 2020. This syllabus covers two sections technically. So the 2 RMA section is the section that is here in the classroom. So, and those of you that signed up for that, signed up to come to class and be in person. And I realize that for many people, that's kind of a preferred way to learn, right? And when I was a student, I always kind of preferred that too. I've taken lots of online courses in my time, but when you're used to learning in person, and this is really true, I'm finding of our younger population, like if you're coming right out of high school or fairly fresh out of high school, you're used to going to school during, morning and early afternoon hours, and that's kind of like what you like to stick with, right? I will give you fair warning though, in the web software developer program and the data analytics program, the propensity of our courses are offered in the evening, not the daytime, especially when you get to the latter half of the program. Those are your options. If you want to come to the classroom, it will be evening instruction predominantly or online instruction. With the web program, you will discover that many of the web sections also have what we call asynchronous online learning, which is online learning without Zoom. So no classroom session is required at all, right? And that seems pretty strange, but for web people, that's completely normal. In fact, about 80% of our web students are strictly online without any classroom or Zoom interactions. And that's kind of an interesting statistic. The web program is talking right now about going fully online in the near future. I'm not sure when that would kick in, but I think we'd have a combination of asynchronous and online synchronous. We'll see if that pans out that way. Now, given the fact that we have 2 sections here, the 2WB section is our Zoom section that's attached to this class. So when all of these seats filled up, which was pretty early on, the remaining seats that we see open here were then switched to a Zoom format so that we could keep our classroom capacity of 18 total as a possibility. And usually we do not exceed those numbers. And part of it is to maintain a really strong teacher to student ratio. If we we're in the traditional university environment. I don't know if anybody's ever done that. I remember my very first day at university, this is like UWM in Milwaukee, walking into Bolton Hall for like Econ 101 or something ridiculous like that, and it was like 1,500 people in the theater. Good luck asking a question and getting an answer. And then you'd go do 2 of those a week, and then on Friday you'd go to a study section with like a TA who was just another student that knew a little bit more than you. So Gateway's philosophy is much more hands-on, much more personal, and much more interactive. And our goal here at Gateway, frankly, is to train you to work in this field with the tangible skills that the employers are asking for in our district. So the Racine, Kenosha, and Walworth County areas are covered by Gateway, and we have a much different impetus than the 4 years do. Our goal is to get you employed, and to do so through a lot of hands-on activities. We're a do-it school, and what you guys are going to discover is we end up within a week or so being into a completely flipped format in this class. And what that means is we will come to class, and I really won't lecture very much. We're going to be going straight into the coding because the lectures are already pre-recorded, right? So rather than come to class and have me like PowerPoint you and fall asleep, you guys have already done that on your own at home through the videos. We come to class and we plow through the code. And what we've discovered here in the classroom is that it's significantly more effective at teaching people how to code because we spend the time doing what it is you want to learn as opposed to talking about it. Then you go off on your own and good luck. And frankly, that's the way that I learned how to code. As I went in the university environment, it was like, back then at least, the teacher would write the code on the board in chalk, you scribble it down in your notebook, run over to the computer lab, and good luck to see if it worked, right? And then if you needed help, you're kind of on your own. We are completely opposite. We do all of those functional pieces in class, and that's why even the Zoom session is important for those people that are listening in on Zoom this morning. And I see Brian and MO. I'm not sure who MO is, but welcome to class. Oh, that's you. Well, hello, Mohammed. All right, so let's talk about some of this, what some of this stuff means here. You'll see the meeting dates and times. Obviously, you guys know when to be here because you're here, which is fantastic. So we're on campus in the technical building. We're seeing downtown campus in room T304 in the technical building, and we're in Zoom. And these 2 sections are what we call stacked. And it is possible. So let's say like some of you that are here in the classroom today, let's say you maybe come down with COVID, or you don't have your babysitter if you have kids or something like that, and you just can't make it to campus, your car broke down. You can always jump in on Zoom and not miss a thing, right? And let's say whatever is throwing you off course makes it so I can't do Zoom and I can't go to the class. Well, you know what? I'm recording it anyhow, so you're fine. And just make sure you catch up with the materials. Like I said, we're all adults here, and I expect you guys want to be here. I'm not trying to force anybody to be here, and certainly don't want to punish you in any way. We're here to learn. The Zoom link is here. It's also in the course shell, and I think that you guys obviously have that already. Here is my contact info, and this is probably a pretty important thing to note. My preferred way to communicate in general is usually through email, largely because that's our primary communication mechanism here at Gateway. And I realize, and we talked about this Monday too, that especially the younger generation, how many of us, even personally, I don't really send a lot of emails to people. Everybody's texting, right? Or they're using like Facebook Messenger or Snapchat or something like that to communicate with people. And I get that. But here at Gateway, all your official announcements from this course and most of the official communications for me will come through email. So it's really important that you guys regularly check your email. My strong advice is if you have a smartphone, which I think just about everybody does, that you load up the Google App Suite on your phone. And even if you already have a personal Gmail account, you can add a school account to it and switch between the 2. It's pretty easy to do. And there's some apps where I think you should install them, like the Google stuff on your phone. The Blackboard one, I'm not so crazy about. I'll tell you that right now. So, and I know that if you're in the Gateway to Success course, which many of you are, they're going to push you to do that. I'm gonna warn you maybe a little bit against that because sometimes you'll get like weird notifications in the middle of the night because that's like when I kind of do some of my stuff. Quiet hours when I'm productive. Just be aware of that. But feel free to try it. But I do recommend that. Now my phone number there does ring. I'm very rarely at my desk, but if you leave a voicemail, it pops up in my email anyhow. If you really want to talk, we can always meet before class. You guys will notice that I will have office hours from 12:15 to 12:45 every Wednesday before class. So you just show up early and I'll be here. And if you need extra help or questions or whatever. No appointment necessary, first come, first serve. But if you have like an issue you want to talk about, I recommend emailing, to let me know that you're going to come. So I can kind of like make a plan to see how much I can squeeze in. If you can't come during office hours, you can always just contact me and we can do a one-on-one Zoom or meet on campus, whatever works for you. A couple of you in the session, so like Mohammed and Bobby, you guys have Zoomed with me one-on-one many times when we were working on other coding things. And I'm always happy to spend the time with you. And that's one of the advantages of these small class sizes, is that we have that ability to do that. All right, let's talk about the course information now. And as we start to talk about Python as a technology, it's really a pretty interesting technology. It has not been around as long as some programming languages. And it really was designed initially to simplify server automation tasks. So the guy that built the language was responsible for managing some servers, and he did not like the scripting languages of old that were really kind of cumbersome and cryptic. And so he wrote Python to give himself the capability to control his server. So he could write a script of like certain actions to take, let's say creating user accounts or something, and then automate it on the server, which is kind of a fun thing. So you can take like really complex tasks that have like 20 steps and hit one button and make them all go. And that's a very appealing thing. What was quickly discovered is that because of the way that Python functioned and the ease of the syntax, it's a really great language to do simple programming. And now it's grown to the point where it does super sophisticated things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics, visualizations, live autonomous robot data feeds, and, like all sorts of crazy stuff. They've adapted it, and it's in huge in demand in industry. So the reason we started offering it about 2 years ago is because our IT advisory board here in our area said, now we're moving a lot of stuff to Python. Are you guys teaching that? And we're like, well, we're going to start. And that's how we decide which courses to offer. In terms of the book, I see a few of you have purchased it, and it basically comes in 2 different versions. They have the printed copy, which is really, it's like a book without a cover with the 3-hole punch thing, and you can put it in a 3-ring binder. Or you can get the electronic version. I have both, and I'll tell you what, I'm really not always a fan of ebooks, but I really like the Python ebook a lot for a couple of different reasons. The content in the ebook format is really cool, but they also have like some of the sample code snippets that you read through. And then the ebook, you can actually hit a button and run the code, which I think is really kind of neat. And so that way, like when you're reading about an example, you can try it like right there, and you don't have to like type it into a different program to execute the code. It executes right within the ebook, which I think is kind of fun. The book, and especially for the data analytics people, and it's funny that you guys sit together, right? You guys will want to maintain that book because we will use some content from it in second semester. So the Data Analytics 1 class and the Data Analytics 2 class will most likely refer to that book as well. I don't think it's required in those classes, but it's helpful to have it. The book is also written, frankly, to cover a lot of different disciplines. And you'll notice that in the exercises. We're going to stay pretty much on the basic level because we're learning, introductory programming skills. But you'll notice that every chapter has pretty advanced exercises built in. So if you want to explore, feel free to explore. Absolutely. If you want to go beyond what we cover in class, there's no reason why you cannot. right? We don't have enough time to go through that whole book cover to cover, but we will get up to chapter 10 or at least chapter 9. It kind of just depends on the pacing that we have in class. In terms of the required materials, and this is, you know, kind of one of those little sticking points for people when they first start here, because I know, like, you're starting up school and you're like, I'm going to buy myself a laptop for school, right? You know, and I want you to be really careful about what choice you make for laptops. And the first thing you're going to discover is, okay, there are ways to do this, I guess, technically on a Chromebook, but they're usually web-based. You need a real computer system. So let's start there. You need to have a real Windows, Mac, or Linux PC. And here at Gateway, we are very, very Windows-centric. And why do we focus so much on Windows? And I think we talked about this the other day in class too. And that's because 95% of the world, roughly, when people sit down in front of a computer and use a computer, it's probably a Windows machine. So it makes sense to teach people that because that's the majority of it. Yes, sir.
Well, I have a principal, and I'm able to use it, right?
I'll tell you what, you can use it up to a certain point, but what's going to happen is we're going to start doing stuff, and it's not so much this class that will be the problem, but when you get to subsequent semesters, you'll have software that you need to install that you will not be able to install on that machine, period. You know, they're just not capable enough. And while they're great, you know, like, you know, Pixel books and Chromebooks and all these like lightweight computers, they have limitations, and the predominant limitation is the processing power, the RAM, and the ability to install software.
Right.
Yeah, and that's really where we get stuck, because a lot of that software gets pretty intensive.
So I should be fine for this semester. Or
you might choose to get something better. And you'll see that when you get started, because there will be software right off the bat that you need to install. If you're clever, you can do some workarounds by working on the web, but then you're not going to be using the same tools that we're using, and I can't support you as well on those tools.
Right.
Now, here's kind of an interesting point, and everybody should know this. If you're in a situation where you realize, oh man, I need a much better computer than what I have to do this, and I'm broke, I don't have money, I don't have a job, and there's no way I have any hopes of doing that, Gateway will provide the equipment to you free of charge. So you guys should know that. All you have to do is ask. And who do you ask? That's me. Say that again? Okay, Miguel, if you think you're going to need that, if you could just send me an email saying, I think I need a laptop. Do you have high-speed internet at home?
Yeah.
Okay, then you're probably fine. But Gateway will give you a laptop with the capabilities you need and a free Wi-Fi cellular hotspot if you need that too, at no charge. Isn't that interesting? Yes, sir. Do we offer VMs? Yeah. The answer to that is a little bit convoluted. Okay, so let me explain why. We used to do that very explicitly in the web program, but in the web program we've moved away from that. But we do have a service that we use that's not technically a VM. It's V2 Cloud, which is a Windows 10 experience that is done over the web, but that's usually only for our software developer students. And that's, you know, the short answer. In emergency situations, we do give V2 Cloud accounts to people in the web program, usually in the 3rd and 4th semester when they're working with Visual Studio, which is really intensive software. And the reason we do that is because that software, you know, it's kind of like a big video game. It takes like 100 gigs of hard drive space and, you know, that type of thing. So it's pretty intensive. Good question, though. Yeah, we've moved away from that paradigm, but that was kind of one of our old paradigms. Like if you have like a really crappy computer, you could just log in online and run a virtual computer to do your work. That's not the approach they're using anymore. I think they're actually finding it cheaper to give people laptops than to do the virtual machines. So go figure. When we get into the actual course materials, I will show you, I have a listing of recommended hardware and software, like what level of machine you should get. And if you're shopping, if you're out shopping for a machine, I'm happy to look at specs for you. So if you, hey, will this be good enough? Bring me a model number, we can look it up and I can tell you. But there's some general guidelines. You know, usually my most general guideline is you can't walk into Walmart, buy the $300 laptop and be good. That's not going to work. You know. Yes, Eve. I'm going to tell you from a person who started with Apple, I wouldn't. You know, I think, you know, I would stick with a Mac. You know, a Mac is a full-blown computer system, and all the Python stuff will work on there just fine. There's only a couple things we do later in the program that might be a little bit challenging, but there's workarounds on a Mac. You can set up virtual Windows environments on a Mac pretty easily, much more easily than you can on a PC. You know, and I don't mean to play favoritism, but Apple's, you know, people always say like, well, I can't buy an Apple because it costs like 3 times as much for the same features, and the reality is the features look the same, but they're not. With Macs, you usually get a lot more for your money, but you're also paying a lot more for your money, you know. So you will be fine. And the nice thing is I'm very well versed on that platform, as are a few of us here in class, right, Mohammed? You're a Mac guy too. Yeah, and I know there's a few of us in here. And yes, you can do all the work on that platform, no problem. Python is beautifully platform independent, which is really kind of neat. All right, the course competencies are the things that you're going to learn here in the class. And as you notice here, we're going to learn all the basics of this language, including, you know, basically how to problem solve, how to put basic programs together. And we're going to work from real basic, like, print output statements all the way up to object-oriented programming. We tend to stay away from GUI programming in this course because that, you know, we're looking more at the fundamental concepts. Gateway is planning to have an advanced Python course that will be taught. And in the data analytics program, we do a little bit of GUI programming, so you guys are aware when we get to some of the subsequent courses. But generally speaking, we're going to be doing what we call console programming, which is command line level programming. All right, let's move on to this part of the syllabus here, which talks about that attendance and participation policy. And so as you guys already discovered, I do not grade on attendance. I don't have like a column, you know, where I go absent, here, not, and subtract points because of it. However, right, I do grade on participation, which means, well, you can't participate if you're not there, right? Although you can miss a class and still not lose any participation points. It's all about interaction, communication, being present, I guess being cognizant, you know, being mindful of what's going on. Being in school does take a certain amount of dedication. And you know, I've been there, I've been a student myself many times over, still am. You know, if you guys want to know the truth of it, I'm still studying courses right now myself. And that's kind of the pathway you choose when you go into IT. IT, medicine, and maybe like engineering, like those 3 fields are fields that pay really, really well, right? And a lot of people want those jobs, but they're also fields that require continuous learning, because Python wasn't a language on my radar when I was in school. Now, you don't want to know how long ago that was, but it wasn't, right? And so now we're teaching it. Well, I had to learn it myself, right? But I have the experience of other programming languages, and that's what happens in IT. Every few years, new technology, new hardware, new languages, new techniques, new frameworks, and you have to be in that mindset to continuously learn. And you're not going to do that unless you're engaged in class. And so there is a bit of a time commitment that happens here. The estimate is really, you know, this is a 2-hour face-to-face class, but we're in what we call blended formats. If you guys are wondering what this terminology is, blended means that normally this would be a 4-hour class session a week. In the web program and in the data analytics program, we only do 2 hours of instruction in person. The other 2 hours are online. So how do you cover that? Well, that's where the videos come in. So if you watch my lecture videos, you read your book, you try the sample exercises, that's your other 2 hours. So some of it is self-study. And then when we come here to class, I don't want to waste those 2 hours, you know, on stuff that you can read in the book. I want to waste those 2 hours doing the work. And so I'm going to repeat that over and over again. We're going to get into that mode where we just walk into class and we go straight to exercises. All right, and I think you guys will appreciate that, especially when the course is rolling. Now, in terms of the grading, I know there's a couple of you familiar with this already. I use what I call a 100-point system. And so the reason I do this is because I think it provides for very clear and simplified grading. If you've ever been in class with any teacher that's ever used what we call a weighted grading system. So here's an example of how that works. So you're in a class and you got a quiz, and it's worth 100 points, right? And then you have a homework assignment, that's 100 points. And then you have a final exam, and that's 100 points. But those 100 points aren't really equal, right? So the final exam has more weight than the quiz, and the quiz might have more weight than the assignment. But they're all worth 100 points. So it becomes really confusing then as to what points you really earn and where you stand. My system is different. I have 100 total points available for the whole class. And for each one of these percentage categories, so 15% is participation, assignments are 68% of your grade, and quizzes and exams are 17% of your grade. Those directly correlate to points. So the midterm, the final exam add up to 17 points. And so when you're taking let's say the midterm and it's 7.5 points, well, that's 7.5% of your grade. So you decide not to do it, well, then the best grade you're going to get is a 92.5. Right? So it's a really easy system to calculate, and there's no guessing on your part in terms of, will I be okay? Will I reach the point level I need to reach? You will see it real clearly. You can look at your total points earned. And then ultimately what happens in this department is we have a policy that's really important that you guys all know coming in, that any of your, what we call program courses in your IT program, so that we're not talking like English, math, or psychology or any of that stuff. We're talking like programming classes and database classes, etc. You have to earn a C or better, otherwise the course does not count towards your degree, right? So you have to retake it. In this course, to get to that level, you got to get to 74 points. So if you don't reach that level, you're at a C minus, and you got to take the course again, right? Now, that's a lot different than like what you see in high school, for example, right? So, and when I get incoming high school students, they sometimes have a slightly different expectations. So for example, like in high school, it's like, oh man, I passed math with a D minus. I made it, That's not how it works here, So the programming courses, if you don't get a C, you got to retake it because we want to make sure you're at a certain level before we put you out in the field working with a gateway degree. What you guys are going to discover is when you do go out and start to find work, that most of the IT departments in our district are staffed with people that have come through these classrooms, including the whole IT department here at Gateway. In fact, even several of our instructors here at Gateway have come through these hallways and these classrooms. And that speaks volumes because people out in industry will hire you just because you have Gateway on your resume, because they know the kind of instruction that we have here, and it really does make a difference, by the way. Absolutely, Mohammed. Absolutely. All right, let's move on to talking about some of the other grading things here. We do have 2 exams in this class. I will have a midterm exam and a final exam. The final exam will also include a little programming exercise where the regular test portions are just basically multiple choice, true, false, that type of thing. I do not do any of the exams in the classroom. So there won't be like a week where you come in and it's like, okay, it's exam day, have at it. You will do those on your own time. I only have 14 weeks in the classroom with you, and I want to use each one of those days teaching you something, not running a test. So I'm not going to lose 2 days doing the test. So the way that I will set those up is I will give you roughly a 1-week time frame where I release the test and when it's due. And so you just figure out a time that works for you. You just do it on Blackboard. Just make sure you have a good internet connection on your own time whenever you're ready to take it. Tests are open book, open note, open internet, phone a friend. Careful where you're Googling stuff kind of thing, but the questions are all based on your textbook. So that really should be your number one resource. It's also based on some of the things that we do in class, but ultimately the knowledge base is that textbook. So that should be your number one focus. And that really, frankly, becomes a reason to make sure that you read the book. Because, I'll ask you a question, and then you should be able to kind of, even if you have to look it up to get the answer, that's your resource. Now, some people say, well, Ty, that doesn't really test people's knowledge, I mean, if you have to look at their book, what did they really learn? All right, well, here's the reality. When you go out into the field and you work in programming, there's no way you're absorbing all this stuff, keeping it in your head and memorizing it to regurgitate it. Well, maybe to a certain degree, but only with things that you do all the time, right? The reality is that people who work in IT are really, really good at finding the information they need when they need it. And, even though I've taught like HTML courses, for example, for like, pushing on 30 years, there's still stuff I'm like, well, how does that go? And I go to W3 schools and look it up and find the code, because I forget, right? And so programmers are the same way, and there's no shame in that game. It really becomes about how you're solving the problem and, how you're doing that approach. The mindset of problem solving and searching for information and how you solve those problems. I do have a couple of late work policies that are pretty important too. So generally speaking, when I put an assignment out there, it will have a due date, and you need to turn the work in by that due date or before that due date in order to maximize your points. Now, if it happens to be a little bit late, what will happen is I will start to reduce the points just a little bit, and usually not too dramatically. One of my famous lines is, this is due at 11:59 on a Wednesday. Do you think I'm waiting there at like 12:01 a.m. ready to grade your stuff? That's not happening. So sometimes even if it's just a little bit late, I kind of don't care. But if it's a day or two late, then you'll see point reductions. One little safety net I put in place that I think you should take advantage of and be mindful of is the fact that if you're working on an assignment and it's not quite done, turn in what you have by the due date, before the due date technically, and then you'll get one more week to work on it without a late penalty, provided I can see that you're actually doing something, right? So if you haven't done anything, well, that's off the table. But if you have like 5 exercises to do and you completed 2 of them, okay, I'll give you another week to finish the rest, right? And some people take advantage of that and remember that, and some people forget about it, but I will try to remind you as we go. Another really important threshold is the 2-week level. So if you are 2 weeks late on any assignment, the most you're going to earn is half the points. And let me just state this, as politely as I can. Assignments are not optional in this class. Okay, so in some college environments and even in some high school environments, people are like, well, you know what, I'm not even going to do the assignments. I'll just take the midterm and the final. And if I get a good grade on that, I have my grade. That is not how we work here. So I've had people very literally do no homework, ace the midterm, and then wonder why they're getting an F. And I have to reiterate, it's like, well, that's only a portion of your grade. That's not, I don't judge, you might know your stuff, but you're not doing the work. And if I'm an employer hiring you, I'm hiring you to do the work, not because you know your stuff. Anybody can be taught to do a task, but employers want people that perform and show up. So these are really important things to kind of learn. And so you have to functionally do the work. And you know what? We'll help you do the work. And see, this is the beauty of the flipped approach. When we come into the classroom to code, we are working on the homework assignments. So we will work on them here together and get them done. And if you get stuck, you don't have to be wondering, hey, how do I fix this? We will fix it right there and then. And that approach I found is very effective. All right. I also have this little mechanism here, the late work exception. And I will remind you of this as we get towards the end of the course. And this is basically a safety mechanism, once again, where let's say you have a challenging week or something and you just can't get to the homework and you don't want to lose points. You can come in here to the syllabus, you can grab a screenshot of that coupon and turn it in place of the assignment, and you will earn 2 points. That's the max you'll get. So if it's a 2-point assignment, you'll get 2 points. If it's a 5-point assignment, you get 2 points. If it's a 1-point assignment, you get 1 point, by the way. I'm not going to give you extra, you know? But you have to do this for yourself. I will not automatically apply it if you don't turn in an assignment. But if you have one that you can't get to, here's a way to get a couple of points. Every point counts, so snag up on it. I will remind you at the end of the course that it's there. It's a one-time use thing, right? My advice is typically wait till the end of the course where I strategically put a number of 2-point assignments in, you know, and why for the end of the course? Because, hey, if you're taking other classes, everything kind of heats up as you come to those last couple of weeks. Projects, papers, you know, homework, and, you know, not to mention holidays, and that's enough right there to put people into a tizzy. And so it's just there to help you out, folks. All right. If you also run into a situation where, you know, life happens, and I'm going to say this as politely as I can, and life happens all the time. It's been happening to me all week, you know. I'm starting class on Monday, and my mom's in the ER, you know, and my sister's also a teacher, and it's like neither one of us can go. Oh my God, you know, like you're freaking out. Still managed to be in class though and pull it off, but life happens. Car accidents, illness, death in the family, fires, blah, blah, blah. And if something like that happens to you, here's what's really important. You guys need to communicate with me. Let me know what's going on. You don't have to give me personal details, but just let me know that something's throwing you off course. And if you've been a student in good standing, I am happy to give you an incomplete to give you a little bit more time to finish up the coursework and be successful. But you have to communicate with me. If I don't know, you can't just like not do work all semester and then the day before class ends go, hey, can I have an incomplete? I'm going to say no. But if you've been a good student, your house blows up, sure you can have more time. That's not a problem. Right? It's kind of a common sense thing. And the crux of it really is communication, right? So if you guys aren't communicating with me, I can't help you out. The school also has a number of safety nets in place as well to help you out, and talk about that here in a second, including tutoring and everything to help you stay on track. Let's look at the key dates for the course here. So we start today. This is Wednesday, September 1st. I can't believe it's September already, but here it is. And we will be ending on Wednesday, December 8th. That's 14 weeks. And I promise you, they will go really, really fast. We will blink our eyes and it will be December. And, so the one thing that you guys are going to want to start thinking about is the pattern of studying and how you're going to do your homework. And there's some strategies I can recommend, by the way. Let's talk about some of these other dates. The financial aid census date, well, everybody that's here in this session here today has already cleared that hurdle. So if you're here on financial aid or some sort of financial support, they require that you attend class within the first 2 weeks, and if you don't, they boot you out of class is what happens. So you guys are all cool with that. If you decide that, hey, this isn't for me, I can't do it this semester, I don't want a program or whatever it is, you can opt to drop the course up through September 20th, and there's some sort of a prorated refund depending on how soon you drop, just so you're aware of that. Following that, I have a 1-week time frame where I can drop you. So if you're maybe coming to class and not turning in any work or not communicating or something of that nature, I can opt to remove you from the class. Now, I will tell you, in my whole time here at Gateway, and I've taught many, many classes, I've only done that to one student once. And that was really anomalous. I don't like to do that because I figure most people do want to be here and there's reasons why they're not. We will have midterm grades that post in the middle of October. So on October 15th, I will be posting your midterm grade, which will be a snapshot of your progress up until that point in time. And so I also like to tell people midterm grades don't stick on your permanent academic record. So if you maybe get a bad grade for midterm, it doesn't mean that life's over and you can't get a good grade at the end. I've literally seen people have an F at midterm and get an A at the end of the course. It has happened. But generally speaking, if your midterm grade's pretty good, you'll probably be fine for the course. And it, once again, does not stick on your permanent record. It's not part of your transcript. If you guys are taking this course and might think that, oh, you know what, this isn't for me, I don't want to do this, I just give up, I'm walking away, I'm out of here, whatever your situation is, right? I recommend that instead of just flunking out and taking an F on your transcript, that you use that last date option there. So if you withdraw formally from the course by November 16th, you will take a W on your transcript and not an F. And a W has zero impact on your GPA. An F has a big impact on your GPA. And it's really pretty wise that if you know, hello, this machine here, how are you? Good to see you. That has a big impact on your GPA, and you know, hey, if you can put a W there instead of an F, hey, do that. You know, that's kind of my thinking. But if you have any questions on any of those dates or any of those policies, please let me know. All right, now we're moving on to the college policy section here. I plan on flying through this pretty quick because I know some of you have already done all this stuff before, being that you've all had gateway classes before. But these are a listing of college policies. And each one of the titles that you see in this document will link out to our official policy in the student handbook. So if you want to know more about academic honesty or the drug and alcohol policy, just click the title and go. One thing that does become kind of a concern, and I will talk about it a little bit, is this first one, academic honesty, especially in coding classes. What this really refers to is plagiarism, folks. It's very easy these days, you know, if you're, you know, writing code, to go out to the internet and do a quick search, find somebody else's code, copy it, and then turn it in as your own. Or work with somebody in the class and they make a copy of your file, you take it and turn it in. And I'm going to tell you what, it is not worth the risk to do that, because most of the time, in fact, almost all the time, we catch people doing it. And the first thing that happens is usually give them F on the assignment, maybe get an F in the course, depends on, you know, what your standing is. And then it's a two-strike thing. The first time you get a hand slap, you get an F. You know, the second time you're expelled from school, and it goes on your record as to why, and then good luck getting into a school anywhere else. And you just don't want to do it. You really, really don't. I know it's really tempting to do it at times, but it's not worth the shortcut. I would rather see you find another mechanism, either contact me for help, go to the tutors for help, or, you know, try your best and see where it lands. It's not worth cheating at all in school these days. For as easy it is for you guys to cheat, we also have pretty sophisticated mechanisms for figuring out that you're cheating, including all the places where people copy their code from. And you know what? You're not doing yourself any favors. Professionally, that wouldn't fly, and it certainly does not fly academically. Right? So take that one to heart. The other one that I think is pretty important here too is, you know, the pandemic clause, I suppose. Just keep in mind that, at least for now, Gateway's got a mask mandate on campus. And if you're curious, that was just reinstated a couple of weeks ago. And the reason why is because they are seeing numbers spike. I saw an article, I think, Monday before I came to class that was talking about how Lucene was thinking about reinstituting their mask mandate for indoors because of the rate they did.
Yeah, it goes on Saturday.
Oh, great. Okay. So it just tells you how serious it is. And the reason they're doing that is because the rate of transmission of COVID in their scene is really, really high. And they wouldn't do it otherwise. Okay, is that what you think it is? Okay, well, thank you. All right, finally, I do want to talk about this little entry here too, where it says support and disability services. If you have any sort of a disability that is like documentable, so like a vision, hearing, cognitive, psychological, whatever your situation is, you want to make sure that you visit the Learning Success Center where disability support services are. That's in the first floor of the Lake Building, which is the southwestern corner of campus here, and put in some documentation that of whatever your situation is, and then we as instructors get accommodation forms so that we can help you contend with whatever your disability is. So let's say if you're hard of seeing, we'll set up different mechanisms for you to be able to see better. If you're hard of hearing, they'll do everything like bring in a sign person or whatever the case may be. If you have some cognitive issue where you need more time for tests, they'll put in that accommodation as well. Beyond that, the Learning Success Center is also responsible for offering all of our tutoring services. And we have a couple of really excellent IT tutors there. And Bobby, Mohammed, did either one of you guys ever use any of the tutors? I didn't. You didn't. Bobby, did you ever use any of the tutors? Well, Bobby, if you're talking, I'm not hearing you, but I had the impression that maybe one of you did. But I will let you know that the tutors are really cool to visit for a couple of different reasons. First of all, the people who are tutors for Gateway for IT are former students of ours, former or current students of ours, and have been through these classes. And they know us as instructors, and they know how we teach. They know our methods for submitting homework and all that stuff. And they don't do your homework for you, but they help you with the process of doing it, so you get comfortable with the workflow of it. And if you are new to this stuff, there's no shame in getting help. And I've seen people go from very challenging lack of IT skills to being pretty savvy just by going through the tutors. In fact, one of our tutors, and I won't name them by name, when they started out, needed tutoring support because they were struggling. They weren't getting the workflow of it. They went for tutoring and obviously figured it out, graduated, and now they're a tutor too, because they really felt real strongly that it was such a positive thing. And it's just that extra little bit of support. You can do it in person, or you can do it through Zoom. All you have to do is make appointments, and I'll show you how to do that if anybody has any questions on that. Right, folks, that covers the syllabus. And let me begin by just asking really quickly, does anybody have any questions on any of the contents of the syllabus or any of the policies? You guys are all cool? That includes online? Okay, I don't think so. Very good. Now, given that being the scenario, what I'd like you to do next is in the course shell, so you can see I've jumped back into Blackboard. There's a little area here that says discussion board, which is in the left side menu. If you click on discussion board, you will notice that there's a couple of discussion board entries here, and I see some people have already done entries. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. But I'd like you to go to the syllabus acknowledgement board, and right up here at the top, you see where I'm moving my mouse, there's a little button. Kind of hard to tell it's a button, frankly. But it says create thread. You click on that, and as for a subject, you can probably just type in syllabus. I'm sure that'll work. And then just give me a brief little message saying I have read and understand the syllabus. And in parentheses, I will obey. That's to see if you guys are paying attention. Now, this is a formal process here at Gateway, so you have to acknowledge receipt of the syllabus. And if you guys don't acknowledge the syllabus, here's what will happen. I won't grade any of your work until you do. So you won't get any scores on anything until you acknowledge that syllabus. You do earn points for doing this. So I think there's a point on the table, if I remember right. All right, and so once you guys have completed that, I'm going to stop this video and we are going to take a 5-minute break. And so why don't you guys go ahead and do that. This video will end here and I'll start a fresh one when we come back from break. So right now it is 11:56. Let's come back, let's call it 11:57 and come back at 2:02. So a 5-minute break, both for the onliners and people here in class.